up with all that stuff at the start. Okay, how do I end up plugging this in? And
kind of a question.
Yes.
Let's go back a second.
Yeah.
So something we were talking about is just a little more isolation, kind of lower down, without getting the rectus involved so much.
Yeah.
And I was telling her that one of the physios I've seen just recently was getting me to do, I was kind of touching this yesterday with Jeff, was getting me to do like a pelvic floor.
Yeah.
Just the pelvic floor though. And for most people, if you are to even lift your leg at first, you can't keep that contracted in without anything else coming in. But if you start with just kind of a leg drag, and 10 aside of those, and most of us are going to be burning here. And that gives you an idea of just how little your TA is normally working. Like, in my opinion, it should be working that hard, right? If we kind of think about it, and that's going to help protect us a little more.
Yeah.
So if we start even one step back from where we were here, then that might kind of teach that contraction a little better.
Because I find, and I see this, or I'll get people that are like, well, I went and don't like bash other people, but it's all based upon their experience of training. I saw this trainer and they got me to do this and I couldn't do it. And a lot of times the stuff that we're used to seeing, it's too advanced for some people, and then you need to regress it to what we were kind of talking about. And then you build them up to that stuff. I'm not saying they do this forever and you're getting them to do max lifts and they're doing this little setting thing. No, that the research has shown is wrong. But when it comes to low back pain, people, we start with pain.
You have to have a lot of awareness not to bring in the rectus.
Yeah, it's so hard.
Like a lot of awareness.
And then John mentioned like how hard do you contract? I say 10%. A good analogy would be like if you just did standing and I lean to the wall, like it's that much contraction. It's a light contraction again you're doing. So standing, foot and a half from the wall, going towards the wall, I've got a light contraction going on.
So is it common to over contract then at first?
I mean, we look at the stuff that we're taught to do fitness, for the fitness conferences. Right? Now, like, contract as hard as you can. And that might be fine for us. We're moving fine. We're good. No pain. But for someone that has pain or they have that fear going on, their threshold that their muscles can handle before something breaks or they get into pain is a lot lower. And we got to take them a step back and kind of build the body, build the movements, but also build that confidence. And yeah, it's okay for me to move. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can move. We start with these light exercises. Yeah, this is helping me. Yeah, I'm improving things.
And is the reason that we're only doing that partial contraction so that we don't allow other muscles to take over any with that contraction? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If I'm flexing my core a little bit, well, it's one thing, and if I flex it harder, other stuff kind of comes into it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thinking is that with chronic or with low back people or chronic low back pain people, the research had showed that those inner unit muscles are not activated and have poor endurance. So we need to take some time if you're in a chronic pain state to reactivate them, build on the endurance, because a lot of times those superficial muscles end up taking things over. And the analogy that I'll oftentimes end up using is like, the big muscles are like the drivetrain in the car. And these small muscles are kind of like the bolts that end up holding the tires together. If the bolts are loose, it's great, drivetrain is beautiful. But the wheel, it's gonna, eventually it's gonna give those little micro movements that Tony was talking about. Eventually it's gonna lead up to a big problem. And a lot of times it's that, like he was saying, you reach down in your back. I throw my back, picking socks out of the dryer. And that's the thing that kind of pushed it over.
So in absence of pain, it's a good thing to practice the like really refining that.
If they're in absence of pain, I wouldn't go to this step.
No, but I mean just for yourself, for interest's sake. Is it better to learn that kind of like real refinement, like back off of? Just curious about that.
I mean, I would probably, would I go through all the inner unit stuff? No, I like the breathing stuff and the visualization stuff. And then with the visualization, when it comes to the stretching and the foam rolling or the soft massage, I think that's really important. When it comes to these fine movement things, it's kind of like what I was mentioning when you kind of, we've seen it with performance, this whole recovery or methods to enhance recovery or methods to prepare the body, dynamic warm-up or foam rolling before. We kind of need to think that when it comes to our client who's usually like 35 plus, they kind of need some of that refining, and I would end up refining when it comes to the movement side of things.
So then, let's say you have someone, like a client or me, for example, who has had back injuries and kind of more chronic low back pain, and you're in a pain-free, you've gone through this and you're in a pain-free state now. Not a bad idea to kind of retouch on that, just to make sure you're staying here and there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of really shifted my thinking when it comes, the traditional, we're kind of talking with whatever certification you follow, there's that stretching component. And Tony talked about, they don't do the corrective side of things when it comes to performance, but they don't have guys like, walking to the drinking fountain to drink for the rest period. They have those fillers to do the corrective exercise side of things. When it comes to my general pop people, that stretching time, I really kind of thought about it. It's not just stretching that we end up doing. We'll integrate these things. So it might be, okay, let's, maybe as a preventative thing, let's incorporate the inner unit stuff. We can do the breathing, what we saw you guys in a low position, breathing, visualizing, like what are you working towards, or what are your goals, might be a fat loss goals. No reason why you couldn't think about that during that time. Let's focus on reaffirming that motor pattern of activating the inner unit. We can integrate it when it comes to that position, and that's perfectly fine. I would either do that in the stretch component or in the days off. Because I know, like when I was working and I was training for Ironman and Ticton, and a big thing my thinking was like,